Cool. All right, let's start it off with a stunt guitar clinic with our teacher, Rob Kraft. Rob has been, me and Rob have known each other for the 20 years.
Probably longer than that.
Longer than that, over 20 years. So I've known Rob since we were like in middle school together. We played in marching band and concert band together, and he's been working at Rockdale. He's the longest lasting teacher other than me at Rockdale. He's been there for 8 years or something, 8 or 9 years. And he just also happens to be one of the best guitar players that I know. So we are lucky to have him on our team at Rockdale on the squad, the Rockdale squad. And he's here to show you some crazy cool tricks that for everybody that's new, if you go into the chat, there is a PDF file, stunt guitar tapping tab, right? And that's the tab for what we're doing today, okay? So you don't need to download it right now. I mean, Rob's going to walk you through everything. If you want to download it now and take a look at it, you could, but chat is empty. Good call. Hey, good call. I guess if you're not in immediately, it doesn't show. All right, yeah, I'll attach it again. But go ahead, Rob. You start, and I'll take the other side of it.
All right, cool. All right, guys. Well, I know some of you guys. I don't know all you guys, so I know where at least two of you guys are at, kind of skill level wise. So today for stunt guitar, we're going to be working on just tapping, and depending on how well this all goes, maybe we'll do more things involving with kind of shreddy techniques and all that kind of fun stuff that can basically turn some people's heads, impress your friends kind of stuff. So for today, like I said, it's tapping, and specifically the first three examples that we're going to be working on is tapping in like a like Eddie Van Halen Eruption sort of a style. The first two follow the exact same pattern that he played in Eruption. It's different notes because Eruption's too long and complicated in the tapping part, just as like a beginner kind of thing, just to show you the technique. So first, we'll talk about what tapping is. So obviously, you're used to playing guitar, fretting and playing the notes with your left hand, which is obviously the hand that normally you learn to play with first. Tapping just means that we're going to play with our other hand as well. We're going to use our other hand to generate the notes. This can be a little tricky because you're depending on hammer-ons and pull-offs to basically keep all of your notes going. So if you lose a hammer-on or if you miss a pull-off, you're gonna lose your note. Like the whole thing will kind of break down for a second. So that's what makes it a little tricky at first. But it's really not that hard of a technique, actually. I think it's probably one of the easiest things to get going on where you can play it fast and impress your friends and all that kind of cool stuff. So first things first, I have a weird guitar. All my guitars are kind of weird. For starters, it has 7 strings, which you're probably not going to be used to. So all the way down here, which looks like your 6th string, is my 7th. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't own a 6-string guitar, so we're just stuck on these weird ones. Also, my guitar is headless and the frets are sideways. So there's all sorts of weird stuff going on. Just try to listen to my instructions, basically, go to the string I'm saying, and that'll help you out. So
you're going to be starting first string from the bottom, right?
Yes.
So first string from the bottom all the way up. So he really won't be using the 7th string.
Yeah, we won't be using the 7th at all today. But it might throw you off. I know some of my students, have been through that where it's like, go to your 6th string, it looks like 5th, and yada, yada. Anyway, so I'll play through, I guess I'll just play through number 1, at least the basic arpeggio. I won't actually do all the string changes, just so you can get an idea of what it's going to look like. So that's the basic idea and the basic pattern. So what I'm doing is I'm tapping with my middle finger. There's a couple different ways you could do it, but I'm holding my pick normal, and I'm going to tap with my middle finger on 12th fret. Now you have to hit it pretty hard. that's kind of the first step. So if you're new to tapping and you've never worked on it before, I would recommend just starting with that. So use your left hand to mute and control the strings you aren't playing, and just practice getting a good tap to get the whole thing started. And that's basically it. So distortion will help a lot. A compressor will also help as well. But basically, distortion is your best friend with tapping. So the pattern here, like again, this is a eruption kind of a pattern. It's 3 notes that just repeat over and over again. So we're tapping at 12, then we're playing 5th fret, and then hammering on with our pinky to 8th. And that's all on your first string. So we're not even changing any strings yet. Everything's, just all on one string. So it's 12 with a tap, 5, and then a hammer, 8 with your pinky. So it's 3 notes, and you want to try to think of it as 3 notes or triplets. So like 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. And you want all of your notes to be, think of like the same size block in your head. You want them all to be the same duration or length. So normally a thing that especially beginners will fall for is like the hammer-on will be quicker than the rest of the notes, so you get something like this. And that's a cool pattern, but that's not what we're trying to do. We want nice and even triplets. Specifically, eventually we're going to try to get it up to 6 tuplets, which is 6 notes per beat. But just start nice and easy with triplets. Just thinking 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. Now, muting is obviously really important here as well, because we're using our other hand to make notes. Normally that hand is, down here by the bridge, and it's used to controlling the notes that way. But now we've got to learn to mute them in a different way. So what I'm doing is I'm resting my palm against kind of all of the strings and just not letting those ring out as best as I can. This is easy to start on the first strings. You basically just cover all of them and just focus on that one string. When we go to change between strings, it's going to be harder because you got to get your hand basically out of the way and then back on. So that's just, something else to be thinking about, especially if you're using a lot of distortion and your guitar is kind of screaming at you and it's hard to get a clear note. Focus on your muting, kind of a combination of maybe your forearm and sort of your palm. Also, you can do a little bit with your left hand too when you get down onto the 6th string. So I'll play through all of example 1 now. I'll go at kind of a moderately kind of quick speed.
Does everybody hear that okay?
We can't hear them. Just nod and everything.
Yeah. Give a thumbs up if you if you can hear it okay.
All right. Awesome.
Everybody, cool.
So that is example number 1. I'll do it one more time, and then I'll kind of explain exactly what I'm doing. So the thing to focus on is try to do 4 kind of groups before you change strings. In other words, we want kind of an even cadence. Right now, all the notes that we're playing are kind of nonsense patterns in that we're just playing the same arpeggio shape down the strings. So the notes aren't necessarily related to each other, but this is like a trick that Eddie Van Halen would do all the time. He would take a familiar pentatonic shape and basically just run it down all the strings and then just tap. That's what he does at the end of the song Hot for Teacher in the little intro. So when you do a technique like that, it's almost like the faster you can go and the more smooth you can go, the better, the cooler it'll be. So what you want to do is just try to count 4 on each one. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then from there, I'm just moving my hand down and tapping onto the 2nd string. And we're just doing the exact same notes, but just down onto the 2nd string. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the way down the strings is going to be easier than going back up, because your hand is naturally going to kind of mute and control them as you go lower. But when you go higher, you've got to be a little bit more careful as you change from the sixth string up to the fifth. So I don't know if you can notice, but I'm using like my pointer finger in like almost like a sloppy sort of way to slightly touch the string that we just got finished playing, and that basically turns it off. I'm also doing a little bit over here as well. It's really an experimentation thing, you know. Just get kind of playing, get going fast, and just do your best to kind of control those strings. So that is example number one. It's about as basic eruption as you can kind of start with. Does anybody have any questions so far? How are we doing? Everybody hanging in okay?
So if you do have any questions, jump into the chat and just send a chat one, or write it down. Like I'm keeping notes of what we're doing too. And at the end, we can do a question thing too, if there's anything that pops up. But if you have anything that's pressing, just pop it in the chat, and that way we can kind of keep moving, and then I'll let Rob know if there's anything that if anybody has like a question that's pressing.
All right, cool, awesome. Yeah, because I realized I was talking for a little while and then was like, I don't know, is everybody okay?
No, it's good. I moderate the chat. That's my job. So if you hear me at all like tapping away, it's just I'm trying to be quiet. All right. Anybody? No questions, it looks like right now. One thing that I for triplets, sometimes for me it helps to think lollipop for triplet. Lollipop. So especially for like younger players, because it seems like every every consonant of that or every they're all the same length, right? Yeah. So lollipop. Actually, when I teach the drum part for Come Together, I teach it as, hey you, I want a blue lollipop, give me one now. And boom, it works. So
nice.
Find what works for you.
Yeah, I'm going to steal that. That's awesome, because usually I use triplet, and then that's definitely not as much fun as lollipop.
Yeah, lollipop.
Especially if you're a young kiddo.
Yeah, it's fun to say lollipop too. Who doesn't like lollipops? Psh, right? Okay, back to it.
All right, so now example number 2 is just kind of taking this to its logical next conclusion, which is just to try to move around on one string instead of worrying about all the strings. So we're just hanging out on the first string the whole time for example number 2. And this is kind of closer to eruption, what he's playing in eruption, but it's again a simpler pattern. We want to start kind of slower. So again, I'll play it and then kind of break down and explain what I'm doing, and then a couple pointers that you want to be looking for to help you execute it as clean as possible. So that's basically it. It's going to be descending chromatically down through the left hand and kind of flows through some chords that move in kind of a cool way. It's the same exact pattern, so we don't have like a new pattern to go here. We're starting in the exact same place that we were a second ago, which was 12-5-8. And basically you do 4 of those, and then we're moving down to 12-4-7. So our left hand just slides down 1 fret, tap stays in the same place. Then left hand down another fret, so now we're 3 and 6. Tap is still at 12. And then left hand down again, 2 and 5 now, staying at 12 again. And then finally to end, we're going to change the fret that we're tapping on. So we're going to move our tap down from 12, 2 frets to fret number 10. So it's 12-5-8. 12-4-7, 12-3-6, 12-2-5, 10-2-5. You just want to do each one 4 times is the idea. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. Now, the hard part about this one is starting over again. So when you get down to the 10-2-5, we have 2 things that we have to do, and we have to do it in the exact correct sort of order, or you're going to kind of drop a note and sort of fumble it. So after the last 10-2-5, you want to move up and tap 12, and then right after you tap 12, you've got to move your left hand back up real fast to get back to the 5-8. So that's the hard part with this one, is really kind of the reset. Heading on down is fairly easy. You should probably be able to get that going on in 5-10 minutes, 15, or so. But that switch back up, especially when you get it moving quick, to try to nail that clean, that's going to be the hardest part with this one. Also, we could talk too about the kind of cool thing about tapping. What's going to make this flow down the neck so nice is that since the tap isn't changing, it's going to mask what your left hand is doing. And that's what makes it sound so fluid. There's so many different techniques that sound sort of jagged and aggressive. So like sweep picking or alternate picking has this sort of like jagged quality to it, which is really cool. But tapping is so smooth, and like, that's what made Eruption so cool, because nobody had heard a guitar do something like that before. So you'll be looking for that tap to help you hide what your other hand is up to. So. So that's the basic idea, up to speed for example number 2. I know I'm kind of going slow and then, kind of fast. What you'd want to do is get a metronome out, go at like a slower speed, slowly build it up to a quicker tempo. That's the other trick to really get those triplets to stay as even as possible. You got to practice with a metronome a whole bunch. Right now, I'm not doing that. I'm just trying to show what it'll sound like as a finished product, kind of a thing. How we doing? We cool? Keep moving into the next.
Yeah, actually, that was something I wanted to mention. Actually, is how you build that speed. So, I could pop it. How I usually teach to building speed, I call it a speed pyramid. Right? When you're first learning, here I'll get you. I know there's like a whiteboard thing in this app, but I wanted my Sharpie and yellow paper, right? So when you start out, you're going to start all at the same speed, right? Because you're first learning it and you want to start low. And then you can start increasing that speed. You're going to hit a point where you can't really play it right anymore. You want to try and push a little bit past that point and then come back down to where you can play it correctly and then keep doing that. Right? That's how I usually like to practice something to build speed. This area up top. This is when you're getting stronger and when you're going to build to get faster, right? It's kind of like a runner does the same thing, right? You want to push yourself actually harder than what you can really do, because that's physically making your muscles be able to eventually get to that. If you just push to your limit and not a little bit past it, you won't break into the next thing, right? I had a wrestling coach who said, like, you really don't know anything until well, this is different. Two things. Wrestling coach that used to say, you don't know something until you do it 1,000 times. You don't know a move until you do it 1,000 times, and so repetition's really key. And that's why this first part, I just dropped it, caught it though. That first part is really important. Just repeating it for accuracy. Like, make sure you're getting it right. If you're not getting it right, don't increase your speed. Stay where you are, right? And then what was the other thing that Coach Frank used to say, too? Oh, you have to break through walls. Like, if there's barriers, you got to break through them. There's, like, every time you've got to go over it or around it or through it, right? I don't know how wrestling is really applying to guitar playing, but it helps me. It just helps me think about it when I get to a mental block, right? Cool.
All right, cool. Yeah, no, I mean, all of that is spot on. I mean, that's exactly it. Start slow and steady. Just be able to play it consistently, and then get the metronome out, start to crank it on up. All right, I guess move on to example number 3.
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool. I don't know if we'll get through all of them. It depends on, how everybody's hanging on. So for number 3, we're going to do a new pattern now. This one is kind of inspired from Hot for Teacher. It's like one of my favorite Van Halen songs. I mean, the solo is just so cool, and everything that's going on there. Even the drum part is super sweet with that double bass kind of beginning thing. Anyway, we got a new pattern. So it's not the eruption pattern. And we're going to use open strings, which is, a really cool thing. I love to use open strings in like all of my licks. Open strings will help move you to a new part of the neck and all sorts of cool stuff. So for this one, the basic idea is that we're going to go down, again, starting on the first string, we're going to go down straight through all the notes, pull off to open, and then back up again. So it's going to look like 12, 8, 5, open, 5, 8, and then it starts over again. It's still groups of 3 or groups of 6, really. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it'll be 12, 8, 5, open, 5, 8, and that's the basic pattern. The muting here is a little bit harder because you got that open string going on. I didn't do the greatest job at first there. So just, it's another thing where you got to experiment a little bit and just some trial and error. So that's the basic pattern, and that's the idea. 12, 8, 5, open, 5, 8. Just repeat it 4 times. Now, the hard part here is when we want to move down a string, we're going to have to do something called a ghost hammer-on. So a ghost hammer-on is when you just slam your finger down to start a note without plucking it. Now, I'm using a fair amount of distortion and a fair amount of compression. It's okay if you don't know what compression means, but it's helping that happen. So if you're on like a clean tone or on an acoustic guitar, this is going to be really, really hard to do. But the distortion will help a lot, especially once you get, pretty good muting going on. You'll be able to control those strings pretty well. So the hard part here is on the last one, I'm going to go down to open and then ghost hammer 5 and then 8 on the second string to then move to the second string. Now, because of the position that we're on, we're kind of ending up with this funny little thing happening where we're pulling off to an open first string, which is the note E, and then we're hammering on 5th fret on the second string, which happens to be the note E. So it happens to be the same note. So for a split second, there's this 2E thing kind of happening. This is a fun little trick that guitar players have done forever, anything from Eddie Van Halen to Angus Young that's just lead guitar where you play a note, bend a note, play a note, tap to a note, play a note, slide to that same note on a different string. It's going to sound subtly different because the gauge of the string is changing. So you're going from a thinner string to a thicker string. So it's going to be a little darker sounding or a little warmer sounding. So that's a cool little trick too, just to kind of play around with. So I'll play through the whole example number, whatever we're on, number 3. Ooh, that stunk. Hold on. Not my best job on the muting, sorry, but you get the idea. The way back across the strings, like I mentioned on example number 1, is the hard part. This one is even a little bit harder because now you got to do that ghost hammer-on move where you are change from one string to the other, but that ghost hammer-on has to do 2 things. It has to now start the next string, but also turn off the string that you were just on. So the way ascending here is going to be almost like impossible to get it to sound as clean as the way descending, just kind of to the nature of the lick. So that's the hard part. So I don't know if you can really see in the camera, but I'm turning on that note D while I turn off that note E, sustaining on my open 6th string. So that's going to be the hardest part about this one. That was just doing each one time ascending. You could do more, you could do less. You can have fun with that. Again, start slow is the key, and then gradually build it up. I'll play through this one more time. So that was it. Kind of played okay. All right. Any questions with number 3? Everybody cool?
Josiah just had I think he missed the beginning, very beginning. He was asking like, how do you do the pressing thing with your right hand? So like the first initial tap, do you have like any tips for just that initial, like starting from nowhere tap?
So think of your left hand in the same way that you're used to fretting with your right hand. In other words, you're used to kind of curving and arching your finger up and playing with your fingertip. Same thing with the tap. Try to not straighten out your finger like this. You want to kind of curve it and give it a little bit so you basically want to hit your string at like a 90-degree angle, straight down onto the string, because you're going to need some pressure there to really get that note going on. At the very beginning, I was just saying, the first thing to do when you work on tapping is just practice the tap, because you got to get that pressure is kind of key. So you could just practice. Just that, or you could go back and forth between 2 notes. It kind of sounds like a European like siren. It's a little funny sounding, but you could just practice doing that to get that tap, because you got to do a tap and then you got to do a pull off here to get to what other note that you're going to, because you're doing all of the techniques are hammer-ons and pull-offs. There is no picking whatsoever. So, you can just practice that. That's a good idea as well. But yeah, it's all about arch your finger up and try to hit at a 90-degree angle with a decent amount of force. Also, as all my other students know, I'm always yelling at them to put their finger, not yelling, but I'm always prattling on and on about put your fingers in the upper parts of the frets, because that's where you have better leverage over your string. You're going to get a clearer note. It's going to be more in tune. Same thing with the tap. It doesn't matter what fret you're tapping on. I have a couple songs with my original music where I tap all the way up on fret 24. Same thing. You gotta roll the weight of your finger to the front of that fret. That's the other little thing here. Don't be in the middle. Don't be in the back, because that's not going to work at all. You got to be just behind whatever fret wire is kind of the higher one, or I always call it the upper fret wire, like lower one, upper one. And you want to, just like that. Hopefully that helps answer the question.
Yeah. Anybody have any other questions right now? You can put them in the chat too. If you're now everybody's got their guitars out, so they're like not typing.
That's okay.
You can also, I think everybody's able to unmute themselves if you do have we'll stop for a question and you can, you know what, I could also unmute everybody. Or raise your hand and I'll unmute you. How's that sound? That sounds like it. We'll stop for questions and then you can say, yeah, I got a question, yo. Right? Cool. No questions.
All right, cool. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing with this too is be patient with it. It took until like 1978 for somebody to like weaponize this and do it in a cool way, because people had tapped before. Eddie wasn't the first guy to do tapping. He was just the first guy to really like uncork it in this crazy cool way. I mean, just go listen to Eruption. It's so cool. I mean, he's got this effect on it called a phaser, and it's got this great sounding like plate reverb, and just like it's just so freaking cool and so smooth, and he just plays it so well. So you try to keep that in mind, like especially somebody like Eddie Van Halen. I mean, he learned by transcribing Eric Clapton solos by ear for like 15 years, and then that's what makes his phrasing so cool, just in general as a guitar player, because it's basically Eric Clapton licks played on like fast forward. It's really is kind of what, a decent way of summing up Eddie. All right, so let's move on to number 4. So this one is a different kind of an idea. This is a little bit of an older idea, actually, in general. So the idea is that you can bend and then tap a note to basically all of a sudden be able to jump up super far up the neck. So I'll play the lick. So it's kind of like there's a lick in the beginning of Barracuda by Heart where they do the same kind of idea where they bend, and that's that's super super old too. So it's this idea has been around forever. Now, obviously, your bend needs to be in tune, otherwise your tap will be out of tune. And remember the way that I like to tell all my students, if you don't know where your note is supposed to be when you're bending, right now we're starting on fret 4 on your 3rd string, and we're trying to bend it a whole step or 2 frets higher. So just fret that. You can do that to kind of quiz yourself, because otherwise you might be coming in flat and maybe you're not realizing it, but if you're going to be able to hear, oh, I'm not bending far enough, or maybe you're over bending. Then you're going too far. If the bend is off, the tap is going to be off. So that's the thing to keep in mind. So the idea here is that we're bending 4th fret up. I'm holding the bend as I tap 12, and I'm just going back and forth. So that's the first part. I'm holding the bend. That's what I got in parentheses above it. So don't release your bend. Then after the second tap, that's when we're gonna release the bend. Sorry, I just realized my guitar was a little out of free. So we're doing that kind of 2 taps and then releasing the bend into a pull-off back to 4th fret, and then you're going to do a hammer on, back to 2nd fret, and then a hammer on to 4th. So it's a bend, tap 12 twice, release your bend, pull off, hammer on. That's, this move with your left hand is lead guitar 101. That's like Chuck Berry, just getting things started. Then to end, I'm going to tap 12th fret. Now, what's kind of cool about this is that when we're doing the bend, we're tapping the note A. Even though I'm tapping 12th fret, we're hearing the note A because we're bent a whole step. In other words, you're hearing that note up there. But then when we tap the same note after we've unbent it, now it's G. So we're hearing like 2 A's and then a G. So this is a really cool idea, especially at like the conclusion of a solo or like the beginning of a solo. A big thing I try to talk about, when you're learning to improvise, improvisation isn't making everything up like off the top of your head. You need to think like conceptually. So maybe you want to play something with like a quick like sequence, or maybe like a real like lyrical melody, like someone could sing. Those are the kind of like artistic choices you want to be making as you're soloing. So maybe you think, I want to do a bendy tappy lick, like what we just learned right now. The more things that you can basically add to your bag, the more when you get your chance to take a solo, you're going to be able to fill it with something that's like of quality. Like I love Frank Zappa as a musician, but like as a guitar player, I don't really like the way he sounds when he improvises, because he sounds like he's just kind of noodling. For me, it's like I really like, especially if you're a guitar player, 90% of the time you're playing rhythm guitar. You get your 8 bars to take a solo. You got to make those 8 bars count, and you don't want to waste them, fumbling around. So, try to think conceptually. This is a great example of a lick that you could play in the middle of any solo where you wouldn't maybe think that you would want to do a tapping lick. But it totally.
That's a very cool. I actually commented that riff is sick. Like that. I mean, I'm gonna play that riff for sure. I don't really use that one. It's a simple one that is pretty. I mean, it's simple in that it's not a lot of notes, right?
Yeah.
It's a tasty lick. And what Rob was talking about with like improvisation, right? I think improvisation gets this idea. Now, there is noodly or out there avant-garde improvisation that's like free jazz, that kind of improvisation. But when we're talking about improvised rock or blues or electric guitar solo, most of the time what we're talking about is actually you're taking stuff that you already know and you're choosing when to play it, right? It's not a solo that's completely written out note for note. It's stuff that you already know. It's riffs that you already have like in your tool bag, right? Or in your toolbox. And you're just picking when I'm going to pull that riff out to play it. So it's good to get all of these little tools to put in your toolbox, and then you can know when to pull each one out. Right?
Yes, definitely.
Cool.
And as well too, like the kid I've been playing in a band with for like 10 years. He's a really good guitar player. And he's always talking about vocab. So like just vocabulary, you know? If you're going to play in a country band, you got to learn some country licks. Like you can't play in a country group and, or if you're going to play in a metal band, you got to learn some metal chops, or if you're blues, you got to learn some blues licks.
You got to learn the dialect.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, sometimes in the moment when you're improvising, you will get lucky and all of a sudden you'll have either this melody or this idea will pop into your head. And then the trick is trying to be able to execute it. And that's the magic. That's super cool when that happens. But if you go into every solo thinking it's going to be like that, you're going to play a lot of wrong notes. Like it's just going to happen, So, so try, like I said, try to think conceptually. And also, remember that tapping is there's so much you can do here besides what we're doing. I'm really, kind of taking the specific Eddie Van Halen sort of approach. But if you check out some guitar players like Sarah Longfield or Yvette Young, they have like a whole nother take on this tapping thing. I mean, they play guitar more like a piano. Andy McKee is acoustic guitar player, and he does all this crazy like tapping, alternate tuning, percussive. He's like banging on his guitar. I mean, all sorts of weird, so there's so much you can do with tapping. This is like your typical.
What were those names? I'll type them into the chat so they can look them up.
Yvette Young, if I can, YVETT.
I think I know. Okay, Yvette Young.
Sarah Longfield, she plays a Strandberg. They're awesome. And then Andy McKee is an acoustic guitar player that like just blew my mind the first time I saw him. Oh, and Andy. Andy McKee. Sorry, I'm talking fast.
No. I couldn't tell if it was Andy or Amy. And all right, there we go. They're in the chat.
Cool. We got one more to go. This one's my own.
Sweet.
This is my own kind of thing. I think AJ will probably recognize this one because we've done this one together. This is in the middle of one of my kind of longer licks. It's in G minor. And the idea here is we're going to hold – I've been holding my pick normal the whole time. Now, the way that Eddie Van Halen would do it is he would pop his pick down into his knuckle and hold it like that and then tap with his pointer finger the whole time. Now, the advantage of that is now you get this really flat surface area that you can mute and control your strings with. The disadvantage is that you've got to do this. You've got to do this move. I'm a little clumsy on stage, so I tend to not do this because you're going to drop your pick, and you don't want to do that. Although sometimes I do, but I normally don't. But that's the way that Eddie would do it. For this lick, we're going to hold our pick normal because you don't know the part that came before or after, but we were using our pick normal, and we're going to need to get back to it. So we're going to use our ring finger and our middle finger to do the tapping. And I will try to play it clean and not make a mess of it, and then talk about what in the world is going on. One more. Oh no, one more. There we go. That's it. So we're 6 tuplets again, groups of 6. But if you take a look at the tab and the way it moves against the rhythm, you'll kind of quickly figure out why that's super confusing. It can make this really hard to keep your groupings even. So, lollipop, lollipop, lollipop the whole time here in order to keep track of that, because we've got taps, we've got pull-offs, and now we're adding slides in the middle, and we're getting more complicated. Our hands are a little bit more spread apart. So the first 2 moves are taps, and what I'm doing is I'm trying to get as close as I can to the camera. My ring finger is going to tap 15, and then my middle finger is tapping 14. So they're adjacent strings. So 15 on your second to 14 on your third. And then we're going to do a hammer-on pull-off move between 10 and 7. So you want to actually start by getting your left hand in position over pinky on 10, index on 7. So we're going... Now, the cool thing about this, you can see the shape is exactly how our fingers just kind of naturally will line up together. So this shape is really easy to tap in general. Like when I'm writing a new solo or trying to come up with something, anytime I can use this kind of a shape, I try to, because it's just going to be physically easy. It's like in tune with the instrument, So that's the first part. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's one more note that we're about to move on to. So like I said, that's what's going to make it hard to keep those groups of 6. The next part, I'm just moving my tap hand down. We're going to tap 12 on the 3rd to 12 on the 4th. And then I'm doing a pull off from 10 to 7, slide down, and then a hammer on. So I'll explain that again. So it's 12, 12, 10, 7, 5, 7. Sorry, I'm a little out of frame again. So from the beginning. So if I kind of count as we go, we start to see, you know, those trying to keep them groups of 6 or groups of 3 is going to be a little confusing. So you just have to kind of do your best with it. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5. Kind of where we're at so far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're going to tap 2 frets lower again. So we were kind of up here on 15 to 14, then 12. Now we're on 10. And we're going to go 10, 10, 8, 5, slide to 3, and I'm out of camera again. Hammer 5, tap 8, and back to 5 down. So it's sort of an Eddie Van Halen kind of an ending as well. So. So again, that I'll go through the frets just kind of slowly. 15, 14, then 10, 7, 10, then 12, 12, 10, 7, 5, hammer 7, 10, 10, 8, 5, slide 3, hammer 5, tap 8, back to 5. So I'll play it in kind of context, actually. I feel like that'll help a little bit. Oops, as I mess it up. One more time.
That's awesome, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, so you know, I'm coming from, you know, normal picking, and that's why you want to hold your pick normal so you can get into the tapping and then get back out of it. I like to use tapping, alternate picking, and sweep picking and legato are kind of my 4. I mean, those are like basically the electric guitar techniques, but those are the ones that I like to really kind of lean heavy on and try to weave between, because I like the sort of aggression of alternate pick stuff. You know, if you can juxtapose that against the smoothness of tapping or the sort of aggression of sweeping into the smoothness of like a legato line, to me, that's you're being expressive. You're doing a lot of really cool stuff there. So that's the kind of thing that I personally really gravitate towards in guitar players like Guthrie Govan and John Petrucci. And there's this Australian guy named Pliny who is unbelievable. And so that's the kind of stuff that I'm into, at least kind of personally. So that last one is my own thing. It's definitely the most complicated of the ones that we've done so far. So, you know, be patient with that one. Take your time. And
take it in small bites, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
I talked about this in the practice clinic yesterday with Dave, but is that you want to zoom in on sections, right? Zoom in on parts. Each section, look at it even as just like 3 notes. If you get 3 notes sounding really good, then it's easy to turn that into 6 notes, right? You can totally just bite this off one bite at a time. All of these exercises, anything that you learn, it's easier just to, everything that's complicated is made up of lots of simple things.
Yep.
I think that's from the Tao Te Ching, but. Anybody have any questions for Rob? Oh, I had a couple different things actually from the question. Well, Jude says sweep picking haunts me. So maybe we'll do this. This chat has actually been the funniest chat that we've had in any of the things. Yeah. And AJ says, yep, I remember this part. It wrecked me forever. Josiah says 5 hours later, like I'm not going to be able to, like that. I'm going to be spending the rest of my day doing this. Then,
Oh, nice little Avenged Sevenfold. That's cool.
oh yeah, there was one thing. I'm an analog girl in a digital world. I felt pretty good about that joke. Okay, so compression distortion. You mentioned using those to help you out. Can you just give like a brief compression distortion, like what those do, how you dial your amp in for that, or if you're using a virtual amp like Rob's doing, like that's another cool thing is using a virtual amp.
Yeah, so right now I've been playing on a Neural DSP. That's the name of the company, and they came out with this plugin called Archetype Pliny. Pliny's that guitar player from Australia that I was just talking about, and it has an amp built in that has distortion. So when you're doing like a lead tone like this, general rule of thumb, you're going to want a decent amount of gain or decent amount of distortion. Kind of crank it a bit. And also another kind of trick is to bump the mids a little bit. So for lead tones, you want a little bit of mids because that's going to help you cut the band as well. A common problem is like dialing in like a bedroom guitar tone, and a lot of like, especially metal guitar players will scoop out the mids, and it might sound cool in your bedroom, but the second you get up like on stage with drums and bass and vocals, and your guitar is going to disappear. So you need mids in order to help kind of cut. So mids will help it kind of sing. A compressor is normally like a studio effect, actually, but they've made them for guitar players. So a compressor pedal, basically what it's going to do is it's going to limit how quiet and how loud you can play. Excuse me. So it's going to kind of squash it, is a way of thinking about it. So that means those taps are now going to sound louder in comparison to the way they would without it. I suppose that's a decent way of kind of crash course, just real. Guitar compressors work different than like a compressor if you were going to like compress vocals, but it's a bit of a different beast. So the plugin that I'm using, or the thing on my computer, basically, it has a compressor on it. Also, it has an overdrive pedal. Not to get too complicated, but if you have like an amp, a good idea is to dial your amp with less distortion, then get like an old school like Tube Screamer overdrive pedal, and then you crank that, really the output of that. You don't need a lot of the distortion part. You just crank the output, and that will push the amp into high gain or full saturation. Right. So that's another trick. So what I'm doing in this particular sound right now is it's got compression going on first, then the overdrive pedal doing that trick into the amp, and then it has reverb and delay on it, just because it's
hitting that pedal hard is doing like a gain boost, right? That's what you're doing is gain is taking your volume and making it like boosting your volume, a gain boost, right? So your gate and gain and volume kind of interchangeable, little bit different, but because how they pretty much react with a preamp and everything else, but
yeah, so when I say
or
gain,
a limiter, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, my bad. Yeah, so when I'm saying gain, I mean it in distortion amount.
Right. Yes.
And it's funny because you can't just grab the distortion knob or the gain knob and crank it on the amp and get the same sound as you can with a pedal in front of it. It is different if you use a pedal to boost basically the volume of the guitar. It's like cranking your guitar volume up to 11, and now it hits the amp, and now you've got more distortion. It's a different thing. There's more clarity. And especially if you're on like a rhythm guitar tone, like your palm mutes will be chunkier and tighter and more responsive and stuff. But anyway, what were you going to say before I cut you off?
Yeah, we're going to do we talked all about doing an effects pedals clinic too. Okay, so that's, if you have more interest in that kind of stuff, we'll do another one of these next week or like the week after. We'll see. What do you guys, another 2 weeks, no school at least? So we'll look at trying to get Robin here doing a sweep picking and a pedal, like a pedal and gear demo, how to like dial in your amp and dial in some pedals. Now, we're going to be able to just do a quick, probably every little pedal, because this is another thing that, like Josiah said, like 5 hours later, You can mess with one pedal for hours.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, like that's the deal, though. I mean,
That's the fun part.
I used to play guitar for 12 hours on Sunday when I was a kid. That was like my thing. Sundays were clear. I had nothing going on, and it would just be 10 hours in the basement, tinkering around, trying to learn that solo, trying to write a song, you know, whatever it is. I mean, you know, like for me, usually my daily practice is around 2 hours. I try to put 2 hours aside like a day to either run original tunes or just to shed in general or improvise or try to learn somebody else's stuff. So it's like learning to play an instrument and learning to try to, you know, if you're really trying to get your playing to a certain level, it just takes time. There's no shortcuts, and you've got to learn to be efficient with your practice, which, you know, is what they were doing yesterday. So.
Yeah. But that's a really good thing to drive home, is that it is like no one has there. Okay, certain people have like a natural affinity to music, right? Or like a little bit, but the ability comes from practice, right? That's always the talent and practice are intertwined. Okay, let me see. That's what I do. Pedal. I just sat in my room all day and played with it. Yep, with new pedals. Yep, exactly. It is a new toy. Oh, dude, that's I call all of my instruments my toys. And now I'm back in my house. I'm not at the studio, so I like packed up my entire Forerunner, my car, and brought all of my toys home because like I was like I need to have them there. Some of them haven't even been plugged in. They're all like, you should see my kitchen. My kitchen is nuts. I have a drum set in my kitchen right now set up. That's where I'm doing my lessons there. So this is fun and interesting for all of us, right? But it's nice to have all my toys at home. Anybody ever have any other questions? Raise your hand or type it in the chat box. Did everybody get the file? I can attach it one more time, just to make sure it's in the chat for everybody. And we are going to post these on... Okay, wait. Compression distortion. Oh, why... Just a quick question, kind of why are your frets spaced differently on your guitar? Why is it like the...
So my guitar is a multi-scale guitar, so that means that the high strings are on a different scale length than the low strings or the low strings. So the advantage of that is like normally I have this guitar tuned in drop A flat, so that means my low string is normally an A flat note. So that means that the low strings will like basically have the correct amount of tension on them, but then the high strings will have like a normal amount of, so you can like play solos on it and it feels like normal lead guitar, and then when you get down to play like rhythm guitar stuff like super low and aggressive like metal stuff, those strings will have the correct amount of tension. So all my guitars actually except for one are multi-scale now. That's super cool. Just in general, like even if you're playing like a 6-string guitar and not tuning it down, like the multi-scale thing is really sweet.
That was my own question. Like I've seen it done. Like who's the jazz guitar player who plays like the Charlie Hunter? Is that his name?
I don't know him actually.
Charlie Hunter. He play. It's like his bottom. I think it's his bot. He plays like a 12-string. I think it is, but it's 4 bass strings and then 6-string guitar. So he plays like the bass. He's a nut. Charlie Hunter. I think that's his name. He's crazy. But different style, more jazz, fusion, kind of funky style. But he's a nut, so you could check him out too. Also, Rob has once you get through this in like 20 minutes, right? Rob has a whole YouTube channel, right? Your YouTube channel is?
It's just, what are we? YouTube. It's just a minor error. It's just the name of the original band. So there's all sorts of junk on the channel.
A minor error. I'll type it into.
Yeah, I think it's just youtube.com/a minor error should be the link.
YouTube.
And I've got playlists organized because there's all sorts of stuff. There's product reviews and our original music up there and everything. So if you check out Music Theory 101, if you check out Beginner Guitar, and then there's like a 50 Cent Licks thing, I've been
Yeah.
Trying to sell my stuff online to people for 50 cents, and I've had varying degrees of success with that. But at any rate, all of that is kind of organized. And if you get in touch with Jared and you see a lick that you want to learn, just get in touch with Jared, and I'll send you guys the tab.
Yeah, he's like Rob's the best at this, creating this content. Like, he's got so much content. Like, literally, you could spend the rest of your quarantine probably on Rob's YouTube channel, learning stuff. So, like, really, it's awesome. Where can you find your band Scantron, Jared? This is about Rob. This isn't about Scantron. But we are getting some play on WXPN recently, so
you guys, man, nice.
Hey, not bad. Yeah, when we were doing our songwriting clinic, James got a text that like the song we had just released, I guess Friday or Saturday, they were playing on XPN, which is like awesome. This information song that, mind you, the information was recorded at the old Rockdale studio with like crappy amps and nothing fancy, and it got on the radio. Okay, so like, don't blame your gear. Rob's got sick gear. I've got some sick gear too, but don't blame your gear. It's you, and it's the songs that you write. It's the creative part of the music and how you record it, like with energy. Like, that's Scantron's a high energy band. Like, that's what we do. But you can find you can find a Minor Air. Bandcamp is the big thing everybody's pushing right now. Bandcamp's like been doing like good promotions for musicians who are right now without gigs, right? And we're all kind of that's why we're doing all these clinics. We don't know what to do with ourselves without playing gigs every weekend. But yeah, Spotify, right? You're on Apple Music. A Minor Air, Scantron.
Yeah, we're it's all like your normal streaming spots.
So definitely listen. So then you can get some context of like where these riffs come from and where they go into Rob's music. You can see like, oh yeah, that's where it is. And his
and if you don't like the screaming vocals, there's instrumental versions of everything.
But the screaming vocals are really cool too. Like, I mean, it's all awesome. It's all really
I think it's sweet, but I know it's not everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah, but no music is everybody's cup of tea, right? That's I'm not a huge fan of the super poppy stuff that comes out that most people like. So
yep.
That's the way it goes. All right. So any other question? Can you send the tab again? I can't find it. Where can you send? I'll also hit the download button on the link he sent. Yeah. So Colin, do you not see the link in the you know what? Are you on an iPad or something? It may be because you're on an iPad. I think when you're on a tablet, downloading that link may not show up or may not. So we're going to upload this to YouTube, and I'll post like a Google Drive link or something. You know what? Let me see if I can probably pull you a Google Drive link right now, and put that in there. That should work. Are you able to hit the Minor Air link in YouTube? All right. You know what? We'll wrap up. And then I'll make sure, Colin, you get your stuff. We'll wrap up the recording of it, unless anybody has any other questions.
Yeah, I just think it looks like it's working.
Oh, is it working? Well, we'll figure it out, but that sounds good. All right. Thank you, everybody. This was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah.
Give it up for Rob.
Nice to meet. Nice to see some faces that I don't know. So that's awesome.
Round of applause. The seal of approval. All right. a big hand. Huh? All right. I'm a cheese ball. This is awesome. All right, everybody give the you. And we'll see you soon. We'll stay tuned. We'll have more of these coming up next week too. Later.